The Princess and the Pea, a retelling of the Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale. Once upon a time, a noble king and a wise queen had a son. He was a fine young prince. When it came time for the prince to marry, he had to find a wife. "I can't marry just any old princess," said the prince. "I have to find a real princess." The prince traveled from place to place. He met many, many princesses. All of them were very nice, but the prince could not tell which of them were real. None of them seemed quite right. The prince looked and looked and looked and looked. He looked all over the world, but he had no luck at all. The prince was very sad. "I'd like to marry a real princess," he said, "but I just can't find one." One winter night, a huge storm blew in. Thunder boomed, lightning flashed, and it rained like crazy. Suddenly, there came a knock at the castle gate. It barely could be heard above the storm. "Who's there?" asked the king. "A princess," said a sweet voice. "A princess?" the king exclaimed, and he opened the gate at once. There stood a wet, muddy girl. Her hair streamed like seaweed, and her clothes were soaked. Water flowed out of her shoes. "Oh my, look at this poor princess," said the king. "Are you a real princess?" asked the prince. "Of course I am," said the princess. I'm just a bit messy." "I'm not so sure she's real," thought the queen, "but I know just how to find out." The queen sneaked off to the bedroom. She removed all the bedding. Then she put a green pea on the bed. The queen put 20 mattresses on top of the pea. Then she put 20 feather beds on top of the mattresses. The queen returned to the princess. "Your bedroom is all set up," she said. "Thank you," said the tired princess. The princess climbed up into bed. "Sleep tight," said the queen. In the morning, the princess came down to breakfast. She greeted the king and queen. "How did you sleep?" asked the queen. "Terrible," said the princess. "I didn't close my eyes. I tossed and turned all night. There was a bump in my bed. It was as hard as a rock. It felt as big as an elephant, and I'm black and blue all over. I feel horrible." "How delightful," said the queen. "Only a real princess would feel a little pea through all that fluff." The prince was thrilled. "I have found my real princess at last," he said. The prince and princess were married the next day. The pea was placed on display in the royal hall, and they lived happily ever after. The end.